Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It is week 1, day 3 of Python. We're going to get started with an algo this morning. So this algo is called string decode. And the way to solve for this one here is, well, let's take a look at each entry. You're going to be given a string like this one here. Let's read it. It says, increase font size for us elderly. A3, B2, C1, D3. Okay, so we have this string that's A3, B2, C1, D3. And the way that we want you to decode this is by making your function return a string that's 3 A's, just as it says A3. So then you'll have 3 consecutive A's. Where it says B2, you'll have following 2 consecutive B's. C1, so that means you have 1 C, and then D3. Let's look at this one here. A3, triple A, B2, double B, C12. Is that 12 C's really? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. And then 10 D's. Okay. So simple enough, right? Your function receives a string and it outputs a decoded version of this string, according to what we're saying is decoded. Okay, so if you have extra time with your algo today, you will be encouraged to look into your algo's time and space complexity. I don't think we've done an official lesson on this up to this point, so it's something of your own little research, but we have our own lesson for that in the JavaScript stack, I believe. So let's go ahead and continue. I've gone ahead and pasted this in the Discord. Is there any questions about today's algo? Okay, so you guys should see it now. I'll go ahead and pause the recording, create the breakout rooms, and I'll see you guys in the rooms.
Josh, take it away.
Welcome back, everyone. So let's go ahead and get started. Who'd like to present first? We're going to go through multiple groups, so might as well get yours out of the way. Come on, Simon. I see that smile.
No,
Yes, yes.
no, we didn't finish. We're kind of
Well, let's see what you have. Maybe we can help you if another group has something that's a solution.
okay. Well, I certainly cannot present.
Who was your group mate?
I was with Valerie and Manjira, and I think Manjira can probably explain best.
Manjira, you've been chosen.
But we did not finish, just to be clear.
Let's see what you have. Let's see what you have. I'll present a solution if no one has it. And then we'll take a look together, but let's take a look at our work. Maybe we were close and we didn't even know it. By the way, everyone, my background here is where I used to do algos in the morning when I was a student. So very familiar feeling to be looking at this image. Are we sharing our screen, Manjira? You're on mute.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I am sharing the screen.
We don't see it yet. I'm not sure if anyone else sees it.
I am going to share right now.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
So, um, Yeah. So we were trying to split the character or the string that we got. So this is a function, decode string.
Okay.
Yeah. And so actually the new string we didn't use, but anyway, so we went through the length of this string that we
Okay.
receive as a parameter to our function. And while we are looping through the string, we check to see if the element at the index one after another is a number. And once it is a number, then we save it in a string that we have defined, then string num. So uh, and and if it is, so let's not get into the next part. If it is a number, then we are adding it to our num string, and we if it is not a number, then we check to see if it is an alphabet, and we add it to our other string alpha.
Okay.
So so we are going to be going through our string this way. So so all the numbers will be in our num one after another, and all the alphabets will be in our alpha.
Okay.
Um, mm, so the rest of the code in the if which checking for the number is to get the case where there are two digits for the number. So because we need to take that two digits as one number, so we are so when there is such a case, then we will save the number consecutively, and put a space after it to uh, differentiate between this number and the next.
Okay.
So that's what the digit is doing, variable. It is basically counting if it is the second time that the consecutively that um, uh, there is a number in that string of ours, then we actually introduce a space at the end of that after that number is saved into our num string. And so and then so our strings are populated with the numbers and the characters that we need, or alphabets that we need to um, uh, concatenate, right? Just repeat and concatenate. So at the end of that if loop, or yeah, if block, we define another string output. And before that, we actually split our num string that we have just created with all the numbers in it, with the space uh, character. So then we have an array of all the numbers that were in that string of ours, in that number, in that variable, in the array num. So the next task is to just go through that loop, uh, go through the list of the arrays, of the numbers in the array, and concatenate, and for each number just add the uh, alphabets uh, in the alpha string uh, that many number of times. So that's what is happening in the second for loop.
Okay.
So um, so once that is over, then we return the output, and that is what our function decode string is doing. And we are calling the two um, strings, or rather we're calling the function with both our strings and trying to print the output.
Okay. So let's see the output for the first string.
Okay, so let me just comment that out. And yeah, that's a good idea, just to check one after another. So let me save this and run it.
Oh, let's clear your output. See where it says code right there? See that oh, let me see if I can highlight it. Annotate. Click this button here if you would, that one there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
clear it, now run it so we can see. Okay. So what's our string here? How many A's are we supposed to see?
Just 3.
Okay. Let's see what the string looks like. The original one.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do have somewhat of an error, but you guys were on the right track, right? So I want to show you guys where you were on track. You had a really great idea. Can you scroll down a little bit for me, please?
Yeah, sure.
So when you first you had a for loop, that's great. I mean, you need to loop through something in order to read it. And then this if statement says if it's not not a number, right? So this is how you check to see if this is, so what is this if statement check for?
Yeah.
If
Whether
it,
it is a number.
okay, so then let's leave a comment right above that if statement and then remind me what it is. This is going to be helpful for your interviews so that your interviewer can follow along your code and your train of thought as well. And it keeps yourself organized. Whenever I, problem solve, I write a lot of pseudocode and then just write real code below it after I comment it out. So make that a habit so that we can always, as a group, work more efficiently and we can see our objectives together. Okay, so great. So this is awesome, right? This is, you need to know if you're reading a number or a character. And we can assume, I mean, you didn't have to, make provision for this, but we can assume that the first character is going to be a letter, right? It's not going to be a number. We know from the format of the input string, it's going to be a letter. That aside, you check, and then you add to this number string however many numbers that you read after that number. This number string, the purpose of this is to take that last existing number and multiply it times that letter in the new return string, whatever return string that was. I'll show a solution it's very similar to yours, but I think it will just complete the ends and lop off the pieces that are missing here. Okay, so I like your guys' effort. You guys did go in the right direction, although you didn't get the right solution, and sometimes that's enough. I've got callbacks for positions, even if I wrestled with it and got close. So thank you guys. And does anyone else have any questions, comments, or would like to present before I show a solution?
Yeah, I was wondering if DeAndre is comfortable with sharing his screen. I feel like we got really close, and I was wondering if we could show what we got.
Okay. Thank you, Manjira and
Yeah, we
Manjira's
should.
group. Fantastic effort.
I can share.
Oh yeah, sure. DeAndre can share it too. He's
Oh, I
actually
didn't
might have
know.
a.
I thought you wanted me to.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
screen. If you, I don't
yeah.
have the code on mine, but
Oh yeah, you don't have the code. Yeah, I'll share my screen. Cheers.
Cool.
so we ran it through trace. So the logic here is that we checked the type first, and we were running into an error at first where even if it ran into like a 3, it was a 3 string, and so we kept getting it so that multi would always be a string, and we were getting an error. You can't we were getting different errors, but basically where it ended up is that we kept having it so either it would check it and then it would always run the first conditional such that it would only update multi, and then we would have an empty character on line 24, or we would always get a character and multi would always end up being 0, and we were just kind of stuck trying to figure out how to get out of this like.
Okay, before we debug, explain it to me from top to bottom before I see the errors. So what's the
Sure.
logic here?
Okay, so we first declare empty string, new string, and then repeat con.
And what's the purpose of this string? Let's leave comments above our variables to say their purpose.
Sure. New string is just a container so that we have something to return at the very end.
Okay, can we put a comment there above 21 to say that, please?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah.
What?
For the return, right? Yeah, contains final string for return.
Why is it not working?
Oh, did your keyboard go out or something?
Here first. It's not letting me use the
Just type it
comment.
in. Type the hashtag or something, or double slash. There we go. Yeah.
I was just confused by that.
Yeah, I always use that one too. Repeat con is mostly just so we can separate out the act of multiplying the character by the number from the actual concatenation.
Okay. See this now. This is easier to follow, and imagine the interviewer as well, right? So okay,
Yeah.
very cool. Now I can see it. Now, what's the next line? What's this next variable? What's multi?
Multi is the storage variable for the number that multiplies every single time we hit a new integer.
Okay. Nice. All right.
And then char is the every time we run into like a letter like A, B, C, it's just an empty string to hold it.
Holds a letter that needs to be multiplied, needs to be repeated by multi. Nice. Okay. So we have our variables defined, and then now our for loop. I think that's self-explanatory, but you can leave a note if you like. All right.
Sure.
So this loops through the string, and then you have this if statement. Let's leave a what does this if statement do?
This if statement checks if the character, or the part of the string that we're at, is a number or not.
Okay. Checks the type of the character at the current index. Okay, so this is going to let us know whether it's a character or number. And if it is a number, then what is the command below it? Let's write in what it's supposed to do if it is.
If it is a number, it will store the number into multi.
Okay, it was stored into multi. And can everyone else see how this is a lot easier to follow along? You can read the logic by shorthand, and then you can see how it's implemented. Okay, so once you have it in multivariable, then what do you do with it?
Well, if we have a character, then on line 38, it's going to use the repeat function of JavaScript to basically
Nice,
multiply it.
nice, nice. Very nice use of that repeat method.
Ugh.
Okay, and else, what about the else if?
If it is a normal letter, like a string letter, then it's going to store it in char.
Okay. Okay, and if it is a letter, store letter in char variable, right?
Right.
Okay, and actually on line 35, I think you mean to say check the index for a letter, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then now that you've done this, you go to line 40, repeat con, and so that's what's gonna do that multiplication by that number, and then you add to new string plus equals repeat con, okay, and then after this whole process is done, you finally return new string at the end.
Right.
And okay, so how far did this get? What broke? What didn't work?
Uh, Basically what would happen is depending on how we put parse int into the if or the else if, either multi would be empty or char would be empty. It basically, we couldn't get it to check both. We couldn't get it to properly make both conditionals work because we just couldn't quite get the logic to, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so let's look. Vincent has a solution, but what? Okay, let's look at Vincent's first before I
Oh no,
say.
I'm just saying it looks like it doesn't grab numbers greater than single digits. But I don't know. I would need to see it. Like if he ran it.
Yes, because see, with multi, the variable multi, what if exactly? I think Vincent's on is going to say what I was going to say in a different way. So look at multi. Where do you add to multi? You add it in line 33, right?
Yeah.
And so what if the number that you're reading through is like 999, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
because only checking the index.
yeah.
Yeah, so you have to account for numbers that are more than one digit as well.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is a lot closer, and it's looking very clean. It seems like there's probably just a couple errors to work through. So how about this? Let me share my solution,
Okay,
and
thank you.
we will see how close we actually were, because we were very close with both groups.
Sure. Thanks, Andre.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Thank you, James. Okay, all right, let's see here. Okay, I have a couple solutions, but the one I want to show is this one here. Okay, here we are. Function, decode string. So we take in our parameter, string, okay, and assume that our string gets put in here. Then we have three variables. The decoded, right? This is going to be the final return, as you see here. And we name our variable something that maybe we don't even have to leave a comment for, so we can automatically assume what this is. All right, and then we have let num string. So this is this is a string that holds that number. So in the last group that we saw, the variable was a 0. It was a number. And so we actually need this variable to hold an empty string. So we're just going to keep adding to this string however many numbers that we find. See how on line 99 it says num string plus equals string at I. So whatever we find that's a number, we're going to add I to it. So if it's 999, we're going to add 9 to this string without adding 9 plus 9, making it 18. And then adding another 9 to that, making it, what, 27? So instead of doing that, we're going to add a 9 to a 9 to a 9 in a string format. That's going to give us 999 every time we encounter that number in the string. Anyways, I'm going ahead. Let's go step by step. So this is our num string. This is going to hold a string of the numbers that we would encounter. So if this were to be this number, right? It's a large number, so it'd be a lot of A's, but we have to account for that. So that's why we have this num string to hold that large number. And then we have a variable called letter, right? And we start that with the string at index 0, because we know from here that the first index is going to be a letter. Okay, so we assume that, and that's assumed fairly. So then this is our starting point. Then we have a for loop, and then we say I starts at 1. Why do we start at 1? Anyone give me a guess?
Because you're a letter variable is at the index
Yep,
0.
exactly, at sir. So this one here, it starts at 0. So we don't need to start at 0. We already know what it is. We already have it. It's a letter. It's a letter of whatever kind it is. And we know what the value of it is because we have it stored here. We have its marker. So it's stored the value of string at 0. That value is stored in letter. And so whatever letter that is, we then start at index 1 to see what the number is, okay? And then we say, while I is less than the string length, because we're going to go to the length of the string, and then we iterate. Const num, and then we have this variable, const num equals parse int at string at I. So what does parse int do? It converts a string to an integer. So this is an inbuilt JavaScript method, pretty cool, right? And it's gonna make whatever index value there from a string to an integer, and it creates a number out of it. So now we have a numerical value stored in this variable num while we're inside this for loop. And then once we have this as a number, once we've converted that index that we're seeing, let me just pull something from here. Okay, where were we? So once we have that index, let's say in this one here, we have that index, we're pointing to 3. We're gonna check, okay, is it a number? And then this, what does this check? It returns a Boolean value, whether a value is reserved as a not a number or a number. So it's checking if this number here is not a number, then what do? If it's not a number, then it's a letter. So that's why we have this comment. If letter found means we have past digits. So if this is an if statement, because as we parse through our string, if we stop reading numbers at some point, so let's say we're at index 1, so number, if we stop seeing numbers at some point, then we reached a letter and we know that we need to do something else. All right, so this is checking to see if we have a letter or a number. If we have a letter, then we're going to do what's in this if statement. We'll check that in a second. But if it's not a letter, right? If it's another number, then we just keep adding to that number string that I mentioned. This string just keeps getting added to it, whatever number that we read through it. So in this case, string 2, we're going to read number 3, 3, 3, 3, and then it would look like this until we reach a letter, okay? What happens when we reach a letter? That means we're at this B, right? Index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once we get to index 6 and we reach that B, then we trigger this if statement. So what does this if statement want us to do? Let's look. It takes decoded this variable that's an empty string at first, and then we add to it this value, letter, which is that first index that we had, the first one that we first touched, dot repeat. So we've seen that in the last group. So it's going to returns a string value that is made from count copies appended together. So it's going to repeat that many times by this number, the number that we have in num string. So this one, 3,333. So this number, this variable, we're going to multiply times this letter, and then we're going to add that to decoded. So now decoded, by the time we get to index, we said 6, and we get to B, it should now have 4 A's, right? A, because that's what we told it to do at this point. Then what do? Then we say, after we get to that point, we have our 4 A's. Now we're at B. We're at index 6. We're at B. So what do we say? We say letter equals string at I. So now we've given a new value to letter. So it's no longer string at 0. It's at string at I where we found that letter. So that gets reset now to the value of whatever we found at index 6, which is B. Okay, so now letter is going to be B. Once we have that B there, then we go to the next line. Number and num string equals empty. So we set it back to blank. We set it back to blank because we're going to reuse it for checking how many times we're going to have to multiply B, which is twice, right? So we're going to have to reset it to get that value. And then we repeat the process until we finish. And then we finally return decoded at the end. Plus letter repeated plus num string. Can anyone give me a guess as to why I add this at the return? I mean, the hint's right there, but can we understand it?
Because we are ending in a number.
Yes.
So the last one doesn't get, it will not get added.
Exactly. Because we know that we're going to end with a number and not a letter, right? Because however this code is, it's number, letter, number, letter, number. No, letter, number, letter, number, letter, number, right? So we start with the letter, then we follow with the number. So we know that the last thing on our original string that we're given for our function is going to be a number. So when we do this process, what happens the very last time? So let's assume that our letter at this point is D. Okay, let's look at that D. Let's assume our letter is D. So I'm gonna restart some of the comments here. And letter is D. So let's assume letter is D. And so we go through the for loop. We have a variable num, and it's going to be index at I. Okay, so this number here is going to get added to what? To the num string. So we the first time we go through this if statement, we hit this else and we get this num string 1. And then we do this again, and then we get this 0. Okay. Once we have this done, this if statement and else are finished. And then we reach the end of the loop. We reach the end of the loop, but we still have this 10 saved in this variable num string. This 10 is still saved, and we finish this if else and this for loop. So what do we do with this value that's still there? Well, we still add it on to decoded because we still want D times 10 in the last bit of that decoded string. So we do it at the very end. So we still have that value in num string, so we use it to multiply times that letter and then add that to decoded right at the return. Okay. So you guys were really close, and I think because you put so much effort in, now that I've given this explanation, you guys can understand it, right? If you didn't put the effort in, if I give you the answer, without you putting the elbow grease in, that you wouldn't appreciate the answer or understand the answer. Okay, so good job today, guys. I'm gonna give us a nice hefty break. Let's take 15 minutes. I'll set a timer. We'll come back and we're gonna learn about more pillars of OOP. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my share. Let's start everything.